Alright, quick update on STEP app ticker symbol FITFI. So, the price action in FITFI has been relatively flat today. We are currently sitting, as of the time of recording this, down about 2%. Now, this is interesting because a lot of the other altcoins, even things like Litecoin, which are relatively flat and dead all the time, are up 17% today. SLP is up 8%. Solana, which is the top 9 crypto, even though it's had bearish news on its Solana protocol, which isn't necessarily Solana's fault, but nonetheless doesn't look good on Sol, is up 9%, and Crypto.com is up 8%. A lot of these are starting to move up over the weekend, and FITFI sitting at a negative 2% kind of shows me that a lot of the open interest in these move to earns has kind of diminished over time. And if you zoom out and we kind of get rid of everything on the chart, switch this over to the Heikonashis, you can very much see that. Now, on the daily time frame, the trend is still there on the Heikonashis because obviously this is a trend indicator. This characterizes when we start and end trends, and as such, it's harder to move us to the downside when we are in a green trend, and it's harder to move us to the upside when we're in a red trend. With that being said though, we are currently running into the daily EMA ribbon, so there are a few prices to beat before we can definitely say that we are bullish. Now, I would like to say, in my opinion, I do not think that we are bullish for FITFI. I do not think the altcoins are bullish either. I think this is a bull trap that we are witnessing over the weekend. Now, why do I say this? Well, the dollar, last week, the dollar closed very, very bullish. The SPY closed very bearish, and subsequently the tech stocks, the Nasdaq, etc. Most of the stock market's looking pretty bad and brutal and beat down right now, and that is obviously going to bleed over into Bitcoin when the New York Stock Exchange opens tomorrow. If the dollar keeps on heading up, if the SPY keeps on heading down, then Bitcoin's going to get wrecked, and in my opinion, these altcoins are subsequently probably going to get wrecked as well. Now, I don't want to talk about the 4-hourly squeeze bump. I want to head over to the higher time frames. What you will notice is we are starting to run out of momentum, as we have had this massive bounce from 5 cent all the way up to where we are right at now at around about 9 to 10 cent. But we have gone as high as 12 cent in this move. Now, I do think 12 cent would need to be flipped before we can even remotely consider like a short-term position. Like, I know there's probably a lot of people that watch my channel that potentially would be looking for leverage trade setups, and I was looking for one myself when I was looking at this chart. You have a 2.618 up here. I fiddled around with this Fibonacci a few ways before I did hit record, and technically if you draw it from the top here, you can see this very almost hit the 1.618, so that would be interesting. However, I find it hard to believe the price action would move up to the 1.618 at 16 cent up here. I'd find it much more likely that if we are going to flip above 12.3, we'd head to the 2.618, which would represent a 20% move. Now, I do not think that's what we're going to do, but just so you know, if we do something like this and we flip 12.3 cent and start to head up, that is when I would be short-term bullish. But I'd really like to hammer this in. Absolutely nothing has changed over the weekend. The dollar is still bullish, the stock market's still bearish, Bitcoin is still macro bearish, the Fed is still hawkish and increasing the interest rates. Absolutely nothing's changed. This seems to me like a short squeeze where we're going to head up to we're going to head up to the upside in the short term, and we're probably going to move back down to the downside in the next couple of days, or maybe even tomorrow within the next, I'd say within the next 12 hours, the next 12, 14 hours or so when the New York Stock Exchange opens. I really think the altcoins could be taking a massive leg to the downside, so be super, super cautious if you are trading this. I'd also like to point this out because, on my channel, even if I think that the narrative is bearish, I would still like to point out bullish technicals so I can make sure that my analysis is remaining as unbiased as possible. And I wouldn't be being unbiased if I didn't mention the absolutely beautiful bullish flip that we've had above the 13 EMA. Now, if we look, and subsequently the EMA ribbons on the 4-hour. On the 4-hourly time frame, the EMA ribbons got flipped bearish at 53 cent, and the 13 EMA got flipped bearish at 50 cent. And ever since then, you can see we're getting rejected. This is where we came up to the EMAs and the 13 EMA, and every single time we come up to them, we get rejected. But at this moment in time, we have managed to flip at this intersection point. We've managed to flip the 4-hour EMA ribbons and the 13 EMA. So to have a successful flip, because there's a difference between the two, you would need to, number one, break above the EMA ribbons, break above the moving average, and top out. That is number one. Number two, you need to come back down and back test them. We've done that. That is number two. And number three, most importantly of all, you need to take out the invalidation point at 12.3 cent until we flip this green horizontal line. Absolutely nothing has changed, and my bearish narrative remains the same. But like I said, I like to make sure that my analysis is unbiased as possible. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. But if you are a veteran to my channel, you know that I've said this a few times. I approach these markets from a purely robotic perspective. I leave my opinions behind the door whenever I do make my TA videos, and I look at things from a mathematical perspective, using things like moving averages, EMA ribbons, which are moving averages, you know, on-chain metrics, technicals, to help me decide for myself whether I believe the markets are bullish or bearish. And subsequently, I leave my emotions at the door. I do not, you know, once again, I look at things as mathematically as possible. And because of that, we've been so easily able to call that FITFI was bearish. I mean, if you go back to my videos, we were trading FITFI all the way back down here when it was like 33 cent, 25 cent, you know, the Cowboy family. We were trading this all the way up, and we flipped bearish once the 4-hourly EMAs flipped on us. We flipped bearish at 53 cent, and ever since then I've been sitting on the sidelines. You can go back to my videos around the 9th of May or before, and you will be able to clarify that for yourself. But once again, nothing has changed. This is a nice flip, but it is not a successful flip until 12.33 cent gets invalidated. So be very, very cautious if you are trading this, my friends. I believe in the next 12 to 16 hours, when the New York Stock Exchange opens, if the dollar keeps on moving up, if the SPY keeps on moving down, a lot of these alts are going to get backhanded by the stock market. That's all I've got for you today. There's also really not volume coming in to confirm this uptrend whatsoever, which is another worrying signal. All I've got for you today, as always, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.